Hey, what's up guys, Anbraxas here. You guys wanted to know what I thought about the patch 5.2 warrior notes. So I'm going to go over them briefly, but generally I think they pretty much suck. I mean, and that's understandable because nobody really wants to see their class nerfed. And warriors have always been in this unfortunate position where, you know, if you buy a new expansion, your warrior will be as good as it's ever going to be on the first day. It'll continuously get worse for the whole expansion. That's just the way it's been for us. But some of the big changes they're doing here, like some of them are stupid, and some of them are just half-ass break the class. And I don't think they're taking in the nerfs, or I don't think they're taking into consideration the nerfs they already gave us when they're making some of these decisions. Like, for example, Shockwave now has a 40-second cooldown unless you strike 3 targets with it, which will reduce its cooldown to 20 seconds. That makes it really ridiculously unreliable, and unfortunately it's always been reliable ever since we got it back in Wrath of the Lich King. So, you know, making that, like, changing that spell in particular is a huge deal. Prot Warriors have always had it. It basically, it doesn't break it, but it makes it a whole lot less useful, because the only other two choices you have are Dragon's Roar, which has already been nerfed. Now it's only a damage ability. It doesn't have the stun attached to it. You know, if Dragon's Roar's damage had been reduced a little bit and still had the stun, maybe this change to Shockwave would be acceptable, but at the moment it really messes up the way we peel for people. It really messes up the way we're going to flag carry, because, you know, you're not always going to hit 3 people, and just that risk of missing 3 people and not having that stun available for 40 seconds isn't worth it to me, and I personally am not going to be taking it except for maybe rated battlegrounds. The change to second wind here no longer applies. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. I like the change to Warbringer, how it reduces the target's movement by 50% for 15 seconds. However, it's kind of a needless thing. They just really need to change the way Warbringer functions altogether. Currently, the way it functions, it's a 3-second stun at the end of your charge, which 1 second's already completely wasted by charging itself, because charge actually has a 1-second stun on it, and it DRs with Warbringer over time, or I'm sorry, it DRs with Shockwave. So Warbringer's still going to be a pile of shit. They really need to take a look at that talent and decide, does it even need to be there? Maybe they could do something else. And I'll give you the answer to that here in a little bit. But as far as shield barrier is concerned, I don't necessarily know what it means by scales less efficiently with attack power. What it means to me is that it blocks less damage, so it's slightly less useful. Not that it was particularly useful at all to begin with, at least for PvP. Stormbolt now does 125% weapon damage, like that fucking matters. And Rage Regeneration now costs 30 Rage instead of 60. I mean, it doesn't make it any better, so thanks for the lower rage cost, but it's still a hunk of crap. And as far as Arms Warriors getting their taste for blood change, I think that needed to happen, because, you know, when they made that change to where it could only stack up to 3 times, at that point it just became pretty silly to even have it there. I like the way it stacks up overpower. I would like to see them extend the duration. You'll keep those overpowers for a little bit, because that could be a fun way to get around the whole rage mechanic, in my opinion. And then they increased the damage of Slam, which costs the same as Heroic Strike. So I guess use Slam now, because it does more damage. So let's go ahead, skip up to the first few pages here, where I can actually talk about what some of their most recent changes is. They decided to completely go back on the way that Second Wind works. They just struck it out of the book, and it now functions the way it used to with the heal, but it doesn't work while you're stunned. Now, that leaves the question of what qualifies as a stun. You know, I know that Deep Freeze qualifies as a stun, which really sucks because, I mean, mages pretty much have that available to them at any time. Does Frost Nova count as a stun? The Shaman Totems count as a stun. Shockwaves count as a stun. Being charged counts as a stun. I do believe the Paladin has an ability that counts as a stun. Almost all the rogue moves count as a stun. So, with every class having some type of stun, with the exception of a couple, it really makes Second Wind pretty much still useless. I mean, it'll be good, but it'll be crap at the same time. The whole having it not work while stunned is a pretty big deal. And there you can see the change reflected right there that I was talking about. I do like the way that Blade Storm can no longer be disarmed. I've always liked the way Blade Storm functioned as an ability. I still use it. If you saw my most recent video, I was actually running Blade Storm. The fact that it can't be disarmed, I think, was more geared towards flag carriers, because if we're going to lose Shockwave, you know, if that just isn't going to be a dependable ability, you're left with Blade Storm to make sure that you maintain your mobility. And when it gets disarmed, it gets disactivated. So that is a welcome change. It's definitely a welcome change for DPS. But Warriors have the set bonus where our disarm duration is reduced. So, you know, it's not like a huge deal. It's not like we're being disarmed for a full 8 seconds or whatever. It's usually about 4. Unwavering Sentinel just gives you your defensive stance as long as you're a prot warrior, which was needed. Defensive stance only reduces 50% damage, which I agree with. I don't like the way warriors need to sit in defensive stance in arenas and stuff like that, but nerfing defensive stance is not the solution to that. The solution is make our plate worth a little bit more armor-wise. I mean, when you gem for damage, you're just too squishy. Like, that's just how it is. You know, a mage can pretty much one-shot you. So I think they're going about that the completely wrong way. You know, while they should nerf defensive stance so people don't abuse it, they should have been looking at our armor values and making our armor worth a little bit more. Now they've changed Warbringer, so it shares the same diminishing returns as Shockwave and Stormbolt, which, you know, awesome that they changed Warbringer, but now is useless again. So fuck that talent. Impending Victory, I'm glad to see them actually buff this, but it's more of a PvE buff. You don't take Impending Victory in Battlegrounds. They boosted it by 15%. So, I mean, it's not a particularly useful talent. You'll get more healing out of it than you will if you go with Enrage Your Generation, but will you get more healing at Second Wind? I don't know. See, this whole talent tree, as far as our healing is concerned, is kind of foobar. I mean, in my personal opinion, you know, instead of them doing what they were supposed to at the beginning of the expansion, where it was like, you know, they said clearly, all warriors seem to be taking Second Wind. Well, then they should have been buffing the other two heals to make them more compelling. Now, like, basically what they've done, and this is what they always end up doing to warriors, if everyone takes one specific thing, they make everything, or they nerf that one specific thing till the stuff that actually sucked ass before looks good. You know, that's my personal opinion about it. This is just some stuff about the overpower strikes, so yeah. Blood Surge reduces the cost of wild strikes by 30 rage. That's a welcome change because Fury already has a huge problem obtaining rage, and it really made you wary of ever using your wild strike. So having free wild strikes is definitely a good thing. So let's scroll up here and look at the rest of the patch notes so far. This is just a a blatant nerf. It really doesn't affect arms warriors, but it heavily affects fury. Deadly Calm has been removed. We added it in a weak moment as a perfect example of button bloat for a limited game. And they didn't compensate us for it. Basically, Deadly Calm just reduced the rage cost of your Dex 3 heroic strikes, which was really, really important for Fury Warriors. So, in my personal opinion, they just fucked up there too. They really needed to compensate us for that. Glyph of Insight no longer procs Deadly Calm because it's been removed from the game. Now procs Demoralizing Shout. So, Glyph of Insight really only works for proc warriors, so I guess that's an acceptable change. And the Glyph of Overpower being used during Die by the Sword increases the duration by 1 second per use. So basically what this means is they're giving a buff to arms. If you save up your overpowers and you trigger Die by the Sword, and I do believe Die by the Sword's 8 seconds of parrying, you can't be disarmed, etc. So if you have 5 stacks of overpower saved up and you just slam them off, you could have up to 10 seconds of parry immunity. So overall, in my opinion, I'm really unhappy with the changes that they've made to the warrior. I don't think they're going in the right direction with it. I think we'll definitely be in a much weaker position in patch 5.2, and it's going to be up to the community as to what kind of position we have. You know, are we still going to have spots in rated battlegrounds? Are people going to want to take us to arenas? Looking at the buffs to rogues and death knights, I'm going to have to say no. In my personal opinion, it looks like they're just going to come out a whole lot stronger than they were, and we're going to be a whole lot weaker. So I'm going to say, for the most part, we're going to have to go back to our old specs, or not our old specs, but our old compositions of like Warlock, Warrior, Shaman, KFC, etc. And we're just gonna have to stick with those because they work with us. You know, one thing I wanted to talk about though, ever since they made the change to Avatar, like our mobility has dropped significantly, and we're pretty much as easy to control as we were in Cataclysm, which defeated the purpose of Blizzard always shouting from the rooftops, you know, warrior mobility is where it's at, and it's really not there anymore. I had really tough times flag carrying recently because of the way they changed dispels and put a cooldown on them. You know, I was always sitting in a slow, always being frozen to the ground, always being rooted, and I think it's about time we get our beta tier set bonus for our PvP gear back. And basically what that was when we heroic leaped, it removed all movement, or yeah, all slows and movement impairing effects from your character after your heroic leaped. I think we need that back at this point, especially with these changes coming in. But that's my honest to God opinion on the changes. I know it's a bad opinion, but at this point, you know, I'm getting sick of, you know, I really like playing the warrior class, and I'm getting really tired of only being able to play it for one season, and then Blizzard just royally screws the pooch for the rest of the expansion. You know, I'm sick of, you know, Season 1 of the expansion, you know, we're gods. Season 2 and 3 of the expansion, we're second-rate citizens. Like, welcome to where Shadow Priests used to be in rated battlegrounds. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much that. Those are my thoughts. Like them or hate them. I'm Anbraxas, and I'll catch you later.